guys, welcome back to another episode here at YASHAV New Ministry with Vayeitzei. Thank you again for being here. If you like the content that we have on our channel, please like, subscribe. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, please put them in the comment section down below. Also, if you know any youth that is interested in the word of Elohim and its truth and its context, please share and bring them to our channel so that way we can study together and learn together and grow together. Alright, with that being said, let's get started with this week's Torah portion. So, this week's Torah portion, it's Vayeitzei means, and he went out or he left, right? So it's talking about Jacob, right? Jacob has gotten the blessing from Isaac, right? What we talked about last week. And so now Esau weeps and he's frustrated and angry because Jacob got the blessing, the birthright. He has the right and the authority of the firstborn, because not only Esau gave away his birthright, but at the same time Jacob and Rebekah deceived Isaac, and Isaac gave Jacob the blessing. So right now, before we get started with the reading of the Torah, we're going to do the Torah blessing, right? It says, "Blessed are you, our Elohim, King of the universe, who has sanctified us with a commandment and has commanded us to study the words of your Torah. Please, Adonai, our Elohim, that the words of your Torah are pleasant to our mouth and to the mouth of your people, the house of Israel, and that we and our children and the children of the house of Israel know your name and become students of your Torah for its essence. Blessed are you, Elohim, King of the universe, who has chosen us from all the peoples and has given us the Torah. Blessed are you, Adonai, giver of the Torah." So, Vayeitzei starts in chapter 28, verse 10 through 32, verse 3. The Haftarah of the prophets is Hosea, chapter 12, verse 13 through chapter 14, verse 10. And the Brit Hadashah, the New Testament portion, is John, chapter 1, 43 through verse 51. Now, God's blessing to Jacob in Genesis 24:18, that all the families of the earth shall bless themselves by you and your descendants, parallels God's blessing to Abraham in Genesis 12, verse 3, that all the families of the earth shall bless themselves by you. And God's blessing to Abraham in Genesis 22:18, that all the nations of the earth shall bless themselves by your descendants. And it's fulfilled by Balaam's request in Numbers 23:10, right, to share Israel's fate. So, in this chapter, we will be reading that when Jacob starts his journey from Haram to Beersheba, right, fleeing from Esau, because Esau wants to basically kill him and hurt him because he has taken the birthright. He's frustrated right now. Esau has understood that he has lost the rights of his birthright, and so he wants to kill Jacob because of the deceiving, and because basically he wants what Jacob has taken from him. And so when we go here in chapter 28, right, it says the following: Jacob left Beersheba and went towards Haran, and he came to a certain place and stayed there at night, because the sun had set. Taking one of the stones of the place, he put it under his head and lay down in that place to sleep. And he dreamed, and behold, there was a ladder set up on the earth, and the top of it reached to the heaven. And behold, the angels of Elohim were ascending and descending on it. And behold, the Lord stood above it and said, "I am the Lord, the God of Abraham, your father, the God of Isaac. The land on which you lie I will give to you and to your offspring. Your offspring shall be like the dust of the earth, and you shall spread abroad to the west and to the east, and to the north and the south. And in you and your offspring shall all the families of the earth be blessed. Behold, I am with you, and I will keep you. And whenever you go, I will bring you back to this land, for I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you." Then Jacob awoke from his sleep and said, "Surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it." He was afraid and said, "How awesome is this place? This is none other than the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven." So early in the morning, Jacob took a stone that he had put under his head and set it for a pillar, and poured oil on top of it, and he called the name of that place Bethel. But the name of the city was Luz at first. Then Jacob made a vow, saying, "If Elohim will be with me and will keep me in this way that I go, I will give me and will give me bread to eat and clothing to wear, so that I can come again to my father's house in peace. And the Lord shall be my God, and this stone which I have set up for my pillar shall be God's house. And of all that you give me, I will give a full tenth to you." So, interesting enough, Jacob goes on his way to Haran, right? And he stops at a place to rest, grabs a rock, and lays down and has this vision. Jacob's journey to Haran and back, right? So this is an illustration, a small illustration of Jacob's journey and on his way to Haran from Beersheba, right? And his way back, right? So Jacob basically, gets off of Beersheba and stops right at Bethel, right, over Jericho, right? And so he's resting, right? And he grabs a stone, and from Beersheba, Jacob likely travels north along the ridge of the hills, passing just west of Hebron, Bethlehem, Jerusalem, all the way to Bethel. The distance covered is about 55 miles. Jacob probably arrives at Bethel on the third night, right? So he was going, 3 days, and on the third night he took a rest, right? And so when we read, right, from the fact that the messengers of God appear passing between the realms in Jacob's dream, it is clear that he is viewing a portal to heaven, right? Such portals are envisioned as stairways, as opposed to ladders in ancient mythology. So the ladders that Jacob was seeing in the ancient Near East were stairways into the heavens, and they had specific buildings, right, that the ancients believe that the gods will communicate and basically connect with the people through these gates, right? They were a connection to the heavens. So Jacob right now is living in a culture that understands the vision that he's having right now, right? So the stairways to heaven, right? One single architectural feature dominated the landscape in the early Mesopotamian cities. Towers known as ziggurats in the earliest stages of urbanization. The city was not designed for the private sector. People did not live in the city, right? So instead, it was a comprised of the public buildings, such as administrative buildings and granaries, which were mostly connected with the temple, right? Consequently, the city was in effect a temple complex. So everything that surrounded the city was mainly for business, right? Public buildings, administrative buildings, granaries, right? So, and it was all surrounded the temple, and it fed off the temple, right? And the temple was a source of life for the city, okay? It was the location where they would go up to worship, to do offerings and business, right? And so what we know about the cigarettes, right? So this is the image of a cigarette, right? So the stairs that you see, right, are kind of a representation or an idea, right, of an image that we can understand that Jacob is seeing. So it says, what do we know about cigarettes, right? Though they might resemble pyramids in appearance, they are nothing like them in function, right? Cigarettes have no inside. The structure was framed in a mud brick, and then the core was packed with filled dirt. The facade was then completed with clean fire brick, right? Second, the cigarettes were dedicated to particular deities. Any given deity could have several cigarettes dedicated to him or her in different cities. Furthermore, the given city could have several cigarettes, though the main one was associated with the patron deity of the city, right? 3. Archaeologists have discovered nearly 33 cigarettes in the general region. Text mentions several others. The main agricultural feature is the stairway or ramp that leads to the top. There was a small room at the top where the bed was made and the table set for the deity. Right, cigarettes range in size from 60 feet per side to almost 200 feet per side. Right, so in the picture, as we see, there is a stairway, right, and then there's rooms, right, and so they believe that in that top room, that they will set a bed and a table, and the God will come and meet them, right, and would accept their offering. Right, most important is the function of a cigarette. Right, the cigarette did not play a role in any of the rituals known to us from Mesopotamia. If known literature were our only guide, we would conclude that common people did not use cigarettes for anything. It was sacred space and was strictly off limits to profane use. Though the structure at the top was designed to accommodate the god, it was not a temple where people would go to worship. In fact, the cigarette was typically accompanied by an adjoining temple near its base where the worship did take place. So the cigarette was a point in where the building and the structure was built for the god itself, right? It had a room at the bottom in where the people would worship, but in the staircase leading up to that room at the top, people would not be able to enter there, right? And so the kings will probably bring the offerings, or the priests will bring the offerings to that room, leave it on the table, right? And in their mind, they believe that the God will come, right? The gate, the heavenly portal will open, and the God will descend, right? And eat and sleep, right? And so that was their mindset with the cigarette, right? So that was like the envision that they had, right? The way that they connected with God. The Tower of Babel was understood as building like cigarette that would connect, right? So that God will come down, right? And they wanted God to come down so they can have a great name. And so here, the cigarette is basically a representation of a portal or a connection from heaven to earth, right? That stairway, right, from the base to that room, right, it becomes a connection, right, a portal to the heavenly world. Okay, right. Now, here in the text, right, it is explained that Jacob says this is the house of God, right? It says the house of God or the gates of heaven, right? The portals were considered sacred space, right? The link between heaven and earth provided passage for the deity from the gate of his heavenly temple palace to the sacred space marked out on earth for his presence and worship. Such places were marked with temples once their location had been revealed to the people living in the area. Right, temple gates and heaven gates. Right, when kings sought to build temples to particular deities, they sought the deity direction to identify such sacred place. Thus, the house of Elohim, usually referring to a temple, in chapter 28, verse 17, Jacob identifies a sacred space, but there is not a temple built yet to mark the spot. It is linked with the gate of heaven to the entry of the heavenly abode or deity. There is a continuum in the space between the heavenly dwelling and the earthly, one such that they are not simply considered mirror images or paired structures, but in the sense that they are more like the upstairs or downstairs of the same building. Yet, it is even more than that, as the earthly temple can be thought of as an actual existing heavenly realm. Right? The temple is a place in both worlds, just as the grave is a place both on earth and in another world. One might compare it to the wardrobe in the Chronicles of Narnia, right, which exists both on both worlds. Right? Some temples feature a stairway from an antechamber up to the central cellar where the deity dwelt, indicating perhaps that the deity's heavenly dwelling was there in the middle of the earthly temple. If this is so, the gate of heaven could be considered. The temple is represented a bridge, if you can say, right? Right, on Shabbat, right, when we celebrate Shabbat, right, as soon as the sun goes down, the importance of Shabbat is that as soon as the sun goes down, right, Shabbat, when we receive it with the right intentions and with the right mindset, right, understanding that it is a sacred time and a sacred space that Elohim separated, we enter into a temple in time, right, meaning that Shabbat becomes the house of Elohim, right? All of us together become the house of Elohim, the temple of Elohim, right? Because at the table, right, eventually we'll understand that the bread signified, right, the provision that was in the temple when the Levites were doing their service, right? The wine as well, right? The table that we have representing an altar, right? And so Shabbat, right, is a temple in time, right? So that's why the cigarettes and the temples that were built represented a temple, right? Represented a connection of heavenly realm to the earthly realm at the same time. It was a space where God can communicate with his people, with the priest, right? So why is this so interesting? Because Jacob is seen a ladder, right? And Jacob makes a vow, and he says that, if Elohim gives them clothes, bread, and water, so that he can make his way in this journey and come back safely to his father's house, right? Jacob doesn't ask for anything super special or different, right? He doesn't ask for gold, silver. He doesn't ask for fame or glory. He says water, food, clothes, the simple things, right? And so he says that he will dedicate himself to Elohim and will bring tithe, right? And he will declare that the Elohim, Yehovah, right, is the true Elohim, right? If he is delivered safely, and if water and clothes and food is given to him, right? He says here, it says, if God will be with me and will keep me in this way that I go, I will give my bread to eat and clothing to wear, so that I come again to my father's house in peace. Then the Lord shall be my God, and this stone which I have set up for a pillar shall be God's house. Then all of that you give me, I will give full tenth to you. Right? So Jacob is saying, of the blessing and the provision that you're giving me, I will give it back to you. Right? I will give tenth to you, because I appreciate and I understand that you are the provider for my way. Right? Now, interestingly enough, in our faith, we believe in Yeshua, we believe in Jesus Christ, right? Yeshua, our Messiah, the anointed one. And so, Jacob here, they say he's a stairway, and it's interesting that Yeshua says the following in John 1, verse 51. Truly, truly I say to you, you will see heaven open, and the angels of Elohim ascending and descending on the Son of Man. And in John 14, verse 6 through 7, he says, I'm the way, I'm the truth, and I'm the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. If you had known me, you would have known my Father also. From now on, you do know him and have seen him. Right? So, it's interesting that Yeshua uses the vision that Jacob has of the ladder, right? And compares it to himself and to his coming. He says that when the coming of the Son of Man, the heavens will open and angels will be ascending and descending on the Son of Man, right? When we see Jacob's vision, we see that the angels and the messengers of God are ascending and descending, right, on the ladder, right? So Yeshua is letting us know that he is the connection to heaven and earth, right? He's the connection and the way, right? He's the way and the truth to the Father, right? And everybody that comes to the Father through the Son, which is the ladder, right? The foundation, will bring Elohim's message, right? Yeshua only takes us to the Father, which is amazing and beautiful, because he is our connection. He is the connector between both realms, right? He's the one that gives us access to that heavenly world and then the earthly world, right? Our Messiah has given us access. He's given us the privilege to keep the Sabbath, to keep the commandments, and to understand that we have to be holy for our King, Right? Jacob saw a vision of the temple of God and its function, and how the priesthood and the messengers are going and coming with the message of God and fulfilling his purpose. We're called to be messengers. We're called to be a voice to the world. We're called to be a light to the world. So please follow the Father's word, honor his Son, and let's be those that walk on the Son of Man and deliver Elohim's message to the world. Thanks for watching. Have a great week. Shavua Tov and Shabbat Shalom. Thank you.